What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you another Transformers movie related video. And as you've read by the title, I just have to ask this question to you guys. Are Hasbro and Paramount slowly trying to erase my boy Jazz from the live action Transformers movies? That's been a question that's been on my mind since he got killed off all the way in Transformers 2007, which was approximately 16 years ago.
You want a piece of me? You want a piece?
No, I want 2 pieces.
The brother always gets it.
Despite the writers killing off characters such as Megatron and Optimus only to bring them back in the same film, I really didn't have an issue with this. And I really didn't feel the need to raise a question of why this couldn't be done for Jazz as well. Optimus Prime and Megatron have always been the primary characters of the franchise who have been at the forefront, while Jazz has played the back. And it's also worth mentioning that if the Bay continuity were still an actual thing, it would make sense why he still wasn't around since he just got killed in the first movie. But it is 2023 now, and since Bumblebee dropped in theaters, we have now established that we're in a new Transformers cinematic movie universe. So why hasn't Paramount reintroduced Jazz to this new audience of fans? Like, he may not be the main character, but he's always fought alongside Optimus Prime, with certain continuity stating that he started out as a friend to Orion Pax before Orion became the big Robo-Jesus we know him to be today. He's been described as the good-natured and fun-loving robot who always takes things in stride, and he likes to go with the flow. And I've often said that if this iteration of Optimus Prime is the rage-induced grandpa that likes to take people's faces, then Jazz is that laid-back, cool uncle that likes to have a good time. That's just the way I see it, and it's awesome that we actually got a chance to see the potential of that in Transformers 07. Despite the modern day facelift, that version of Jazz pretty much eludes everything that was seen in the 80s in the G1 series. From the personality to some of the details on his design. Not only does he feature his signature optic visor, but he also features the wheels at the back of his feet. Also, even though his vehicle form isn't a Porsche 935 in this movie, a similar looking model was chosen as his new form is the silver and gray customized hardtop Pontiac Solstice. He's the first lieutenant of the Autobots as well as head of social operations with his own dedicated roster of agents. But even though he has a team of highly professional Autobots, he rather assigned himself to the hardest missions. And don't get it twisted, it's not because he has the biggest ego in the world, it's because he's a cool, calm, and collected bot that gets things done. His easygoing nature extends to environments he finds himself in, no matter how weird they are. And when it comes to getting in tune with the local vibes and culture, he has a way of improvising and actually embracing things, as seen when he links up with his fellow Autobots in a alleyway and he greets Sam and Michaela.
What's cracking, little bitches?
My first lieutenant. Designation Jazz.
This looks like a cool place to kick it.
And he also possesses some type of electromagnetic right arm, which he uses to disarm humans of their guns without causing them injury. During the time of his debut, he was the smallest of the Autobots, and Michael Bay stated in an early interview that he stood at 13 feet tall. However, the scale of his deluxe toy suggested that he stood closer to 15 feet tall. This is confirmed by the profile in the second issue of the Transformers UK magazine, where it is stated that he stands at 15 feet 17 inches tall and weighs 1.8 tons and has a maximum speed of 400 miles per hour. The official guide to the Transformers video game also stated that he's 15 feet tall, so yeah. But despite his small stature, Jazz was fearless and he would not hesitate to blick you if he had to. A little fun and unknown fact is that he was going to possess a different type of weapon that we saw in the movie, a melee weapon called the telescoping sword. And granted, that's what the text says on his deluxe class figure pertaining to his gun, but I'm under the notion that this actually came from the concept drawings of a sword weapon that was featured on the same concept art that featured Jazz showcasing his short-range blaster / shield. So this might have been an interchangeable thing. But anyways, besides his brief and short-lived appearance in the film, he's appeared in a ton of material that correlates to the movie. He appeared in a prequel novel titled Transformers Ghost of Yesterday, where he was part of Optimus Prime's team searching for the Allspark. Before the Civil War began between the Autobots and Decepticons, you could find Jazz as one of the security force members in the IDW movie tie-in comics. Besides those things, we obviously have the video games where Jazz has appeared in 3 movie tie-in titles, such as Transformers the Game, where he's a main playable character voiced by Andrew Machino. In the Autobot campaign, he is first tasked with distracting Sector 7 from Sam, Michaela, and the Autobots, but gets ambushed by Decepticons and he must be saved by Ironhide. In the Nintendo DS Autobot campaign, he is tasked with collecting some Sector 7 vehicles for analysis and ends up fighting Blackout. Later, he plants a computer virus at the top of the communications tower and slips through the security to download information about Megatron and the Allspark, but ends up finding Bumblebee's location inside the Hoover Dam and a way inside the base. Even though he didn't appear in Revenge of the Fallen, he was included in the game's DLC content for the Xbox 360 and PS3. Apparently overcompensating for not being in the movie, Jazz is pretty much the most devastating robot to go up against. The dude was that hard. Unfortunately, it was unrelated to any story aspect of the game. In this universe, he's never been shown to actually survive any kind of encounters with Decepticons. As a matter of fact, Jazz has been killed a total of 3 times by 3 different Decepticons. He's been killed by Megatron in the movie. In the Autobot campaign for the game on the DS, Brawl was able to kill him. And in the Decepticon campaign, a fake law enforcer kills him. So it's quite unfortunate for my boy. And it makes you wonder why he always gets dealt a cruel hand. I know fans like to mention that Cliffjumper is the punching bag for all the Transformers properties, but we've only seen him bite the bullet once in anything related to a Transformers live action movie, which includes the tie-in comics. He was sliced in two in Bumblebee. And speaking of Bumblebee, I think it's a bit odd that they didn't seize the opportunity to bring Jazz back in that film, even if it were for a small little cameo. Like, with the exception of a couple of robots, we had basically gotten the original lineup from the first Transformers movie up in that epic Cybertron scene. We got Optimus Prime, we got Bumblebee, we got Ironhide and Ratchet. The only one that was missing was that of Jazz. Fast forward 5 years later in Rise of the Beast and he's still nowhere to be found, which is very odd considering the fact that they utilized his vehicle form for another character named Mirage. And I know people are going to argue that they had to use that because Mirage's vehicle form, the race car, isn't a street legal vehicle, but they could have chosen any vehicle besides the Porsche to give to Mirage and make him his own unique character, as opposed to just doing the whole bait and switch thing and leaving people to assume that it's Jazz. If you ask me, he's Mirage in name only, and he evokes more of what Jazz was in the previous incarnations. And now that he's here, it's going to be harder to introduce the cool and fun-loving Autobot into a later sequel. I wouldn't be surprised if kids and newcomers just confuse the two, because believe it or not, that's always been the case with Jazz and another character up in the live action films. For whatever reason, fans always confuse Jazz with Sideswipe from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, because they're both silver colored characters. So the writers over there at Paramount are gonna have to give Jazz something to make him stand out amongst the pack, which if you were to tell me this had to be done 16 years ago, I wouldn't believe you, because Jazz is one of those characters whose individuality just shines through the most because of how unique he moves and the way he talks and things of that nature. That's always seemed to have been the assignment for each Transformer that they introduce in this movie, just making sure that they all have their own unique personality traits that sort of mess with each culture that they represent. Jazz lands on Earth and he loves the hip-hop culture, so he's going to use the street vernacular. It's one of the most seamless transitions compared to other characters such as Hot Rod, who's apparently been stuck in France so long that he's stuck with a French accent, or this character who I refuse to label as Wheeljack, who's been stuck in Peru so long that he has this thick Spanish accent. None of that really adds to their character mystique or the way they move and fight, as opposed to Jazz, who fully embraces the hip-hop culture by using fluid capoeira style moves, and you can see him transforming using a windmill dance move in his first scene in dialogue, and he even does a semi-worm when he transforms into his vehicle mode. Stuff like that, man. That stuff makes you really want to see characters like this, not the stupid characters that contribute nothing than being a walking stereotype. A force one at that. Speaking of which, I have a nagging suspicion that these two particular characters are the reason why we don't see Jazz in any of the mainstream Transformers media nowadays. And those characters are Skids and Mudflap, two characters that are mired in controversy. Now, don't get me wrong, even though these characters are unbearable, fans have grown to like them and appreciate what they were, but at the time of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen's release, they were very unbearable and they only added to the criticisms that this film had. There is a considerable negative reaction that those specific characters had, with some perceiving them to be the embodiment of racist stereotypes. Even though they were considered the good guys that fought alongside the Autobots, they were made for all intents and purposes to provide comic relief. But instead of getting those laughs from the audience, they were just commonly known as the Jar Jar Bots, which is a nod to another controversial character from the Star Wars franchise. And if you know anything about Jar Jar Binks, then you know that he's one of the most stereotypical characters we've had in Hollywood cinema, which is what has been implied about Skids and Mudflap. Some of you would argue that you didn't see anything stereotypical about these characters and you can't find a negative thing on them online, but there have been many statements published on news articles, so I'm gonna read them to you guys. Critic Scott Mendelson said, and I quote, "To say that these two are the most astonishingly racist caricatures that I've ever seen in a mainstream motion picture would be an understatement." Nicholas Govid said, "They're like fools, the comic relief in a degrading way." Harry Knowles went further, asking his readers not to support this film because you'll be taking your children to see a film with the lowest forms of humor, stereotypes, and racism around. The statements go on and on regarding these characters, but those are just the criticism outskirts of things. I want to actually take you guys on the inside behind the actual movie where we hear statements from the people involved with Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, because this really shows you that everything's not cut and dry when it comes to the writer and the director of a film. And that's the case for this, because there seems to be this divide, which is ironic because the song related to this movie is titled New Divide. So there was essentially a new divide when it came to Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I want to actually take you to what the writers said in regards to this movie because they weren't even in the know of how offensive Skids and Mudflap were going to be. Here's how the writers Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman responded to the controversy. "It's really hard for us to sit here and try to justify it. I think that it would be very foolish, and if someone wants to be offended by it, it's their right. We were very surprised when we saw it too, and it's a choice that was made. If anything, it just shows you that we don't control every aspect of the movie." And that was the case, guys, and you gotta remember that Revenge of the Fallen was made during the writer's strike. For the longest time, that was everyone's excuse of why this movie wasn't as good as its predecessor. And we know that's a crock of BS because later on the other films suffer from the same thing, which was childish frat boy humor and stupid characters. You could tell that this was all Michael Bay's doing because he went on to defend this, saying that it's good, clean fun and insisted that we're just putting more personality in. If you still think I'm over-exaggerating with this, then I want you to hear from the actual voice actor of Skids himself, Tom Kenny, who you all may recognize for his voice role as SpongeBob SquarePants. In a late 2020 interview, Tom said that he was hired as a placeholder for the role of Skids, but that Michael Bay ended up using his voice in the final version of the film, a decision that Tom said that he was embarrassed by. So there you have it, Skids has spoken. You got two twin robots disguised as compact Chevy hatchbacks that constantly brawl and bicker in rap-inspired street slang, and they're forced to acknowledge that they can't read.
Can you read this?
Read? Nah, we don't really do much reading.
And one has a gold tooth. You can't make this up. And I can't help but assume that because these guys have that hip-hop vernacular similar to what Jazz had in the first installment, that's the reason why Paramount has been so hesitant to push the button and reintroduce Jazz to the world yet again, because they feel like they're going to get that same pushback that they got from a lot of people in regards to these characters being stereotypes. Which is unfortunate because we, the people, we know what Jazz is and what he's capable of. He doesn't have to be this loud and obnoxious character that checks off every box when it comes to offending people. He's too smooth and cool for that. Sadly, it looks like we won't be seeing him grace the silver screen anytime soon. Instead, he'll just be drifting away in the Laurentian abyss where he was buried in the comics. But hopefully I'm wrong by this. You know, I'm not clairvoyant by any means. Even though the future looks grim for him in terms of live action movies, we do have an animated project that's coming to theaters in the near future, that being Transformers 1, so maybe we could see a newly introduced version of Jazz in that. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I really wanted to get this off my chest because it's just been lingering there for so long, and I've been asking this question of why they haven't really brought Jazz back. But I want to know your thoughts. Do you feel like Paramount and Hasbro are reluctant to bring this character back because you think they'll offend somebody? Or do you feel like they want to erase the character for good? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, I ask that you share it with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing is caring. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.